Hello, everyone. It is so nice to see you here tonight on the Going Solo Network. This is WGSN-DB Going Solo, and we are radio, TV, and a podcast station. We are the #1 internet singles talk network, and our website is right up above me. It's goingsolomedia.com, so I hope you'll join me there at the website with all of our wonderful hosts that have terrific shows that they do each and every week, and we post them on there so you have them. But of course, you're listening either on Facebook or on YouTube live here tonight. And of course, we have all our great shows right there too. So just go ahead and check them out. We would love for you to do that. But let's talk a little bit about this show here tonight. Going Solo with Cece. I am the doyenne of relationships. My name is Cece Schatz. I've been doing this type of work for quite some time now. I'm actually the founder and owner of WGSN-DB Going Solo Network, but the station is not built by me alone. It's built by you wonderful listeners, and all our wonderful friends out there that give us support continuously each and every day, and we want to thank them for that. But we want to move forward very quickly now to our guest tonight, because I'm very excited. We have a very special guest here tonight, and I'm going to bring her forward. Let's bring her right up so you guys can see her. There she is. And her name is Rebecca Dawson. She's the author of a brand new book called Agreement, and she's a channeler. So tell us a little bit about Rebecca and about how you made the journey into being a channeler, and what exactly does that mean? But welcome to the show tonight.
Thank you. Thanks so much for having me. Well, what is a channeler? I think it feels different for different people, and I think it appears differently for different people. But in essence, for me, being a channeler means being able to access divine wisdom and access streams of consciousness and information that's not readily available in our reality. And I think this is a capacity actually that everybody has. But for me, it's been kind of my prime focus for at least the last 25 years. Quite by accident. No one plans to be a channeler, I don't think. It's not something you study for at school, and there's certainly no qualification or real accreditation for it that I'm aware of. So for me, it happened when I was quite young, spontaneously. I've always been able to see energy fields and see things that most people can't see, that are beyond third dimensional experience. And one day, spontaneously, when I was about 18, suddenly my voice changed and my mannerisms changed, and I, in essence, almost became somebody else. That's what it felt like at the time. And so much beautiful, heartfelt wisdom and content started flowing from me. So it's been quite the adventure, learning how to be okay with that, and really coming to accept that that's a part of who and what I am and what I'm doing here.
You know, as you say that, it comes to mind the adjustments that we all take as we move forward in our lives. There's so many different things that we go through. And then with you being very young, realizing that you have this particular gift that, you know, you're not quite really understanding, but as you grow older, you're being able to, you know, express that, be able to research it, you know, understand it more. And it's quite interesting. So tell us a little bit about the channeling. So do you have masters? Did I take it that
Yes.
help you to be able to do the channeling? How does that work?
Yes, and I wouldn't say that they're masters of me. I would say they teach us how to become masters of our own reality. Okay. When I first started doing this, you know, I was embedded in I have a Catholic background. That's how I was brought up. And then I learned about metaphysics and started to learn about spirituality through that, to kind of support me through what I was experiencing, or at least try and explain it somehow. But what I found was that there was so much sense of hierarchy and so many rules and regulations and ritual that was involved in a lot of principles and practices around spirituality and indeed channeling, that I found didn't fit with what I was experiencing. So the type of information that started to flow through me really didn't sit within that box. And one of the challenges that I had at that age was I couldn't really find anything that could agree with or somehow confirm what I was experiencing, or indeed some of the information that was coming through. And that's because way back then, we were starting to bring through information about this paradigm shift and how the mechanics of reality are not working in cause and effect, and they're not going to be, and how humanity is going to be changing. Even down to what we understand about the chakra system and the energy body, the information I was receiving was quite different from that. So on a personal level, it was a huge leap of faith to be able to bring through information that at that time I wasn't able to find anywhere else. And to really learn to trust in what was unfolding and what was happening. So it really has been quite an adventure. And I have to say that every day is a leap of faith because when you're doing something that feels so new and there's no reference for, the only way that you know that it's right is if it feels okay. And this has really been part of that unfolding for me, is that internal trust all the time.
Yeah, tonight when we were talking about, what to call the show, and then, I realized that discover your truth, it truly is what it is about the essence of each individual, right? We all have our own gifts. We all have, something that's within ourselves that, kind of goes out into the universe, and touches other people, no matter what type of work we do or what type line of life that we have, path that we have. But really discovering our own truth. And I really admire you for being able to step towards your life, realizing that you have a gift and that you're building up to it. And so let me ask you, when you were starting to understand that you do have this particular gift, did you do any kind of training, or were there people that influenced you to be able to channel more into being able to open this this arena up for you?
Well, I wish I could say yes, because I've tried really, really hard to find that. And to Because, I was brought up in that whole paradigm of education and learning that I think we all have been, where you're a student and you need to find a teacher. Okay, this is happening for you. You need to be guided. And so that was my, prime focus in the years that followed, through to my mid-20s, was how do I find somebody who can help me with this so that I don't do the wrong thing or get led astray or go off the path, or because there was a lot of alarm bells that were ringing for other people around me who were saying, well, you're too young, you're not experienced, you shouldn't be doing this, you haven't earned your way there, who do you think you are, all of this kind of thing. And so look, I read books, and I traveled to England and Europe to try and find people, and no, sorry, can't help you. I even went as far as going into ashrams in Bali, in Indonesia, and I got rejected. And I couldn't get a teacher. Couldn't get a teacher. And I felt so disheartened and disillusioned. But of course, now I realize what a beautiful, beautiful gift that is. Mm-hmm. Because all of the wisdom and information that we've been bringing through since that difficult period for me has really been about the embodiment of the divine within. And really, in our view, and from what the masters bring to us, the day of the teacher is over in many ways. And this is where humanity really steps into our own unique knowing, where we learn to trust ourselves and what we feel and what we know. And so for me, that whole disillusionment and disappointment and feeling rejected and you're doing the wrong thing in life was what enabled me to really discover my own truth and my own sense of wisdom. And that's what I now spend a lot of my time encouraging other people to do, is trust yourself.
Yeah. So there's a shift that's been created. And so often when we reach those obstacles in our lives, there's a learning, a value, a learning thing for us, and something that we're supposed to be able to take away from it. And that's exactly what you've done, is like realizing that there are other people out there with the same type of gift, or maybe similar, or something different, but they do have a gift that needs to be explored, and it needs to be appreciated, and it needs to grow, right? and
Right.
and shared with others. And so to be able to now create that shift to help other people understand that you're not different, you just have a gift, and that you need to tap in on what that is, and what that means to you, and what it means to the path of your life. And so yeah, that's a pretty cool thing.
Absolutely. And I think really, until we're willing, as humanity, to step into what we know internally to be right and to be true, and to really believe ourselves in any experience, we can't bring anything new into this world until we do that. Because just like something with, channeling, or it could be anything that you're doing, we always check outside of ourselves. Is this right? Does this match what's already being done? Is there evidence for this? Is there a certain amount of data and experience that agrees with what it is that you're experiencing? And there's a huge, in some ways, gap or problem that appears if you're feeling or experiencing something that there is no reference for.
Mm-hmm.
And to many, that can feel like a breakdown or isolation, or I'm straying off the path, or I'm lost, I don't know what's happening. But in essence, what's happening is you're waking up, and you're going to be bringing something new to the planet. Now, a lot of the information that we were bringing through in content for books that came out 10, 15 years ago, no one had ever really heard of before. And there weren't really any references to what is this shift of fifth dimensionality, what does the end of the karmic cycle mean, why are the chakras changing, all of this sort of thing. But if I didn't have the courage to talk about that back then, there's a lot of people talking about it now, but there was no reference for it back then. So
well, speaking of that, you've written several books, and this latest book that you've written is The Agreement. So tell us a little bit about that, and what now, and we'll talk about some of your other books too. And I'd also like to, before we end tonight, I'd like to talk a little bit about your website, because you've got a fabulous website with a lot of content on it that I'd love to be able to share with other people. But let's talk about this new book that you've written, because you've written several others. So what made you want to write this type of book?
Well, it's interesting, because this is the first book that I've really come out and spoken about the way that I am now, because this book for me is so powerful out of all of the content that I've delivered in 25 years, and there's a lot of it. This to me is the embodiment of a principle for life, and it's a principle for life and humanity as we're entering a new period on our planet. Mm-hmm. So for me, this book is timeless, and that's why I wanted to make sure as many people as possible read it, because it's a book that will still be incredibly relevant in 50, 100 years, and so on. And it really is a principle for life that talks about natural law and natural mechanics for creation, and how humans are designed to operate, and how we operate best, that is not in accordance to what we've learned about ourselves, to how we measure ourselves, to our external reality, to where we think our value and our success is. And it really is a complete repositioning of where we sit in our reality, so that we can actually start to create a new reality. Because I think, if anything, this year, 2020, has shown us that even though there's a part of us that wants to go back to how things used to be, there's also a lot of people waking up to discover that actually I don't want to go back to how it used to be. I want something better than that.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. You're so right. And I think that this book would be a great read, as a lot of people are in the lockdown and not knowing exactly what to do. You might as well read something that maybe will create that shift in your life, because we're all looking for that shift, aren't we? And I hate to always say change, because we don't like change. We don't even like that word. Whenever we hear that word, our hair stands up on our arms, and we don't want to face or embrace change. But when we say the word shift, it's not so cumbersome. It's something that can happen slowly over time, and which is a wonderful thing. So yeah, I mean, I really appreciate the fact that you've written this book, and that you've gone out, and that you're actually talking to other people and bringing it forward.
And that in itself is, a bit of a challenge for me personally, because I'm quite introverted, and I'm quite a private person, and I put out a lot of content, but I've always had the approach that, well, whoever needs to find it will find it. But with this book, it really spoke to me, and I feel that it will speak to many people, and it can really challenge the way that you think about where you are in life and how life actually works. So in many ways, the content in it is quite radical.
So could you give me an example of what that would be like? So if someone's reading the book, like what can their takeaway can be? How can they create that shift for themselves?
Well, a lot of people I've had some really great reviews and feedback from people who have read it already, who say that they actually can feel themselves changing when they're reading it. There's something happening to their energy field. Their body starts to feel different. So for me, it's not just the information in it. There's something cellular happening for people when they recognize it, because the title of it is agreement. You're actually moving into agreement with natural law as you're reading it. So the basic premise of this book is that we're shifting away from a reality where everything is about cause and effect, which is where we have to expend energy or donate energy to get anything to move, to get any kind of effect or creation happening in our lives. And when we do that, we actually tend to take our focus off ourselves and towards the goal, and we lose our sense of empowerment in that moment. So if you think about pushing a ball up a hill, you're constantly donating energy, constant focus, constant singular direction in order to get anything happening. It can be quite exhausting, and you have to be very consistent and diligent. If you take your eye off the ball or you stop, you can feel like you're regressing, you can go off the wrong path, all of these sorts of things. And even in terms of relationships, we tend to think that relationships take a lot of work and a lot of focus and a lot of diligence. That's a particular paradigm of thought and operation. But when we move into fifth dimensional reality and beyond, we start to operate in a sense of resonance, which means that we sit in the totality of who we are. We're not donating or giving away energy. We're actually starting to see things that are in agreement with that resonance show up in our reality, and not just in one direction, but in multiple directions. So instead of there being one option to move forward in a relationship, for an example, or one option to have a choice for purchasing a house, for example, you start to see multiple things show up. So we start to have choice, true choice, for the first time. So it's wonderful.
It sounds just amazing. And I've often talked a lot about in relationships that the more you learn, the more self-discovery you have, really the discover your own truth, would raise your vibration level. And then when your vibration level is raised, you're meeting people at a different place. You're meeting people at that vibration level. So you're coming up. So like if you're having trouble with dating, you're having trouble meeting people, or you're having trouble with anything, it's because your vibration level is down and you haven't done enough to be able to get your self-help and get yourself into that other plane. So am I correct in my way of thinking?
Well, I think that's great to look at vibration and resonance for ourselves, because what we tend to do is we tend to look at other people as separate to us and say, is this a match for me? Do I feel like this is going to be compatible? Rather than, I am a complete 100% match for myself. I'm sitting in my own totality, And that's what I'm showing up in this space in. Because what that does is it takes out all the negotiation. It takes out all the assessment and strategy and thinking things through. And it allows only that which is a match for you to be able to move into your vicinity. So it really takes out a lot of the selection process. It takes out a lot of the trial and error that we all go through with relationships. But one of the key shifts in relationships is, as we move into this new shift on the planet, this new experience, is we tend to think of relationships in terms of, what can I learn from this? What lessons do I need? How can I assist this person? What contract do we have? How can we resolve things from the past, etc.? I know I certainly have thought about relationships like this. I think most people have. But as we move into this new paradigm, relationships become very different, because they don't become about resolving problems or helping heal things from the past. They become about, how can I have a more amplified experience of who I am? So what you're talking about with moving into an awareness of your own vibration, if you're completely aware of that, someone else comes on the scene and they're a similar vibration because you're in resonance. Now you have an amplified experience of who you are. Right. So I liken it to a candle with a flame and another candle coming in, and instead of leaning in so it can catch a light, which is great, now you've lit up that candle, or they've lit you up, but one of you is going to burn down really, really quickly from that. Yeah. It's two candles sitting in a room, and now suddenly you can see more because you have an amplified experience of yourselves. So there is more opportunities that appear, and life appears fuller and brighter, and there's more space. So I think that's what we all want in relationships, is to feel more of ourselves rather than donate anything or seek something.
Yeah, that's beautifully said, and that's so true. It's absolutely true. It's exactly what we all want. So what we're gonna have to do, I hate to do it, but we're gonna have to do a quick break. But when we come back, let's talk a little bit more about this wonderful book that you've written, Agreement. But let's also talk about some of the other books, and because those are the books that kind of led you up to this one. So I want to make sure that everyone knows, how important reading those books are. There for them also to be able to grow and expand with. So we're going to take a quick break, and so you'll just stick around, and it's just like a minute, and we'll be right back. Well, hello, everyone. We're so glad to have you back here with us. Of course, you guys are listening to WGSN-DB Going Solo Network. I am Cece Schatz, a doyen of relationship building. We are a radio, TV, and podcast station. We're the #1 internet talk network, and our website is right up above there. It's goingsolomedia.com. We hope you'll check it out and join us there for any other shows that we have. But tonight we're going to move forward with our beautiful guest here, Rebecca Dawson. Welcome back to the show, Rebecca.
Thank you.
Nice having you. Now, Rebecca is the author of Agreement, and she's also a channeler. We're talking today about Discover Your Truth. And, we covered a lot the first part of the show, and I've really enjoyed all that you had to share with us. But let's talk a little bit more about the book and how it might relate to what's happening in the earth today. So, we have the coronavirus, we have all of these things that are happening, all this shift that's taking place. So tell us a little bit how that would relate when we're reading your book.
Well, it's really interesting because we've been hearing about this shift with the masters and through things that we've been delivering content-wise for the last 10 years, 15 years at least. And this shift for humanity happens on every level. So it's not just about a frequency, it's about how our bodies work, it's about the systems and structures on the planet, it's about how we create and manifest. Every single thing that we understand life to be, the whole foundation for that shifts. And we've known about this for some time. Now, when this has happened on the planet before, and it has happened 5 times at least, we've had a big shift like this on the planet. But how it's happened before is that it's been the end of a cycle. And when the end of the cycle has happened for life, that, there's an ice age, there's some kind of cataclysmic event where the physical experience ends collectively so that something new can begin and things can really start again. Now, what's happening differently this time, which we've known about for quite some time, is that this is going to be the first time that this happens on the planet without requirement for a physical death, without requirement for life to come to an end to start again. And it's incredulous that this can happen, but it also can be incredibly disruptive, because what humanity has come to depend on the most at the end of this cycle is our external systems and structures, more so than any other period of time that humanity has had on the planet. We have become so tethered to externalized systems of belief, externalized systems of thought, of regulation, of abundance, of information, that is the part of the ending of this cycle that's actually we're starting to see now. So when we look at what's happening this year on the planet with what we call COVID, and everyone's being encouraged to go back to themselves. Some of us through isolation, through losing jobs, through a lot of people have come out of relationships, particularly in the last 18 months to 3 years, in preparation for this, because even relationships have been based on structure and contract for many people. So the systems were always going to be the most disruptive part of this paradigm shift, and indeed the last part to shift, where we've seen people's emotions changing in the last 5 years, their identities, relationships, their interests, how they feel about things. A lot of people have had body changes, what people call ascension symptoms. So a lot's been happening on every other level, but the thing that hadn't shifted yet was the external systems and structures. And so what's happening on the planet right now is we are really seeing that come into visibility. And I think that there's a lot of question about how effective systems are. Do they really support us, or do we support them? There's all of these questions that are starting to happen now, and the exposure of how the structures and systems on the planet are working and how they've been set up is never more apparent, has never been more apparent than it is now. So this can seem to be the most frightening aspect of a paradigm shift, apart from physical death, because we've come to rely upon it so much. But it's also a wonderful opportunity for us to discover as humanity and real community, because the community that's happening now is not necessarily community that's about the structures. It's community, us reaching out to each other because we've kind of become untethered a little bit. We're less reliant on them because we don't really know what we can rely on right now. We start to believe in ourselves again. And really, this is about a return to sovereignty and a return to empowerment of the self and the consciousness of who and what we are as humans. And when that happens en masse, then we can really begin to create some fantastic things for the planet, because so much of our energy and focus has gone into upholding external structure and systems. What could we do if we actually decided to do things from joy rather than from obligation?
Yeah, I look at relationships, how they are, and what's happening. In my, and I know you're from Perth, and I'm from the United States, and so much has happened here in the United States with, it's just amazing with about relationships. When you thought things were really going very well, then all of a sudden it's been, you know, just the awareness that humanity is just, you know, abrupted. It's amazing to me that, some of the things that have taken place and the violence that we have here in the States now. And it's just, so it's created a lot more awareness that, like you were saying, that, things are just not really as they're perceived. And, we definitely need to create something different. We need to shift somewhere. And I think it has to start with us,
Right.
individually.
And we see what you're saying about a lot of people moving out of relationships, and sometimes it happens out of the blue. I know many people who around the world who have suddenly woken up one day and all of a sudden they realize they shouldn't be with the person they're with. Mm-hmm. And it's like a switch. So that's highly indicative of anything that's around self-sacrifice or contract coming to an end. Mm-hmm. And sometimes you can't explain it. You were quite happy in that the day before, and suddenly you're seeing things differently. Suddenly you want something different, but you might not even know what that is yet. But it's so apparent to you. Mm-hmm. So we're seeing that a lot in how we relate to each other as well. But a lot of people are becoming less tolerant. And sometimes we think that being less tolerant is problematic. But in a very gracious way, being less tolerant also means that we're starting to honor ourselves. Mm-hmm. And what enables us to become more of ourselves.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I've had this conversation with many people with regards to, relationships today are not like they used to be. They're not looked at differently. And I know dating, we talk a lot about dating here on our station, and dating is taking a shift. There's something that, that's happening within dating, the relationships. And a lot of the older people, they're looking at, now they're out in the dating arena and they're looking at building a relationship totally different than what they, had started at the first part of their lives. And so it's definitely, relationships have definitely taken a turn, taken a shift. And I'm not saying whether it's good or it's bad. It's just that I'm noticing a definitely difference, but it is centered upon what's good for oneself. That's also good for others. You know what I mean? It's not something, it's not like totally being selfish, but you have to do what's good for you, in order to do what's good for, if you're going to have a potential partner in your life.
I absolutely agree with you. And I think it's something that a lot of people misunderstand, because really service to the self mm-hmm. enables you to be the best possible version of your design, mm-hmm. which then ultimately is the service to others.
Yeah.
Look, I got married at a very young age. I've actually just recently divorced as well, and which I never expected would happen. And I realized that entering that experience of marriage and being in that for 20 or so years, my whole understanding of that when I went into it was based on service, mm-hmm. and service to another, service to family, service to the community. But there wasn't any service to myself in there. And it's so interesting how that, I feel, is happening en masse for so many people, mm-hmm. where they're waking up to their own sense of value.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah. and not just that, it's like, it's that, but it's also, we create this service in the relationship, and it's not, the service that we give to someone else is not always honored and respected. and so if that person moves on to something else or whatever, they don't respect all that you've actually given to them. So without, and then you don't honor yourself as you're giving that service. So you've actually done a tremendous disservice to yourself, because you're left there trying to figure out, now, who am I? What am I? Because for years I never really opened, what was really good for me, what the joy was for me. And that's a shame, because families, didn't really know who you are. You know what I mean? So you're like, if you have older children, or you have children, all they got is the mom that was of service. They didn't get the mom of the unique personality, or the dad that is pretty awesome and all those things. So I really do feel your book is really going to open eyes, and really going to make us look and shift and look at things differently, look at our lives differently. So I think it's important. Let's talk just briefly, because I want to make sure we get everything in here, because there's always a lot to cover. You've had a wonderful life, and so you've given us, many wonderful books. And so I want to make sure that we address some of those. But your very first book, I believe, was The Human Experience.
The New Human Experience.
The New Human Experience. I'm sorry, I apologize for that. So that was your first book. And then you went on to write Elements of New Reality, which is an ebook. Am I correct?
Yes.
Okay. So you have that too. So just share with us a little briefly about each of these books, so that if someone wants to, should they buy them in order, or does it not matter? So like, if they buy your new book and read it, they can still go back and read these and still write.
Yeah, I think a great foundation book for understanding the paradigm shift and the shift of humanity from 3D to 5D is The New Human Experience, because that's really outlines in a very, very simple way what the shift is, how it's happening, what it looks like, why it's looking like it, and why you feel the way you feel. And that book was really born out of me seeing, hundreds and hundreds, thousands of individual clients and patients in a clinic setting who were all coming in for counseling or for energy or body work, because they couldn't understand why things were getting disrupted and going haywire. And so from all of that information and the channeled information, we've been able to map out, this is what's happening and why. So that's a really great handbook to understand all of the disruption and to know that you're absolutely normal in what you're experiencing right now. And it's been a relief for many people to read that book, because they're like, oh gosh, now I understand why this is happening and why I feel the way that I do. So that's a great foundation, that one. Elements of a New Reality really is talking about what the elements of our reality are, and we talk about them in terms of earth and wind and fire and water, and how those elements, if we can understand those almost as metaphors in our daily life, how we put them together to create new things. Because if there's one thing we've forgotten how to do as a humanity, as a race, we have forgotten how to create. All we do is repeat. We know how to do this, and we'll do it over and over and over and over again. What we've forgotten how to do is create. So that talks about creation. And I do have another book I released this year called The Game of Purpose, which talks about how do we navigate life when we suddenly don't know what our role is or what our purpose is anymore. And I wrote that book this year because so many people are going through that right now, particularly with all of the changes that are happening. It's like, well, who am I without being a mom or being a partner or being this person within this organization? It can be very disruptive.
Yeah. Did you find that when you were going through your divorce? Did you find that you didn't, that you question your purpose? That you?
Oh, yeah. Definitely.
Yeah. I mean, I can totally see that, because I mean, I felt the same way, and I just didn't, I didn't know what my next steps in life was going to be. And so I thought that was very insightful, with regards to finding your purpose.
And what I find really fascinating is that people find it very difficult not to have a purpose or a role. As soon as we come out of one, we automatically try and reinvent ourselves. and now what? And you see this a lot. I'm sure you see this a lot. People come out of something and suddenly they want to redefine themselves. And a lot of people will even change their names or move into a new direction with their interests to try and find that identity. But there's such a beautiful gift in sitting in life without an identity, because it gives you the freedom to do more. And so that's really the thrust of that book is the value of dropping through purpose.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's beautiful. Well, and also I'd like to just share with the audience your website. I loved your website because if you go to Rebecca's website, and let's make sure we put it up here so you guys have it. Let's see, it's right there, RebeccaDawson.net, and that's RebeccaDawson.net. So make sure you guys check it out, because she has so much content on there. I was shocked. I saw your books, and then I saw all of the other, you have, some audio, you have some video, you have several, I mean, it's an abundance of information, which, it's rare to see that, but it's also a blessing. So I think it's a wonderful thing. And, as we're moving through life, it's not always, it's embracing that journey, right? Really living those experiences and relishing in the fact that we get to wake up every morning and we get to embrace this world and really step out into something new and exciting. And so, you writing these books are really terrific. You've really set us on a path of understanding, and I want to thank you for that. I appreciate it.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. And I also have a YouTube channel too. So there's lots of free channelings and material on there I put out all the time. So just try and keep everyone up to date with what's happening so you know that you're normal.
Now, let me ask you about the channeling. So if anyone is interested in contacting you, can you do this online?
Yes. Oh, obviously, I'm in the most isolated capital city in the world, so I do most of what I do online. So I do personal channel sessions for people as well, so that they can have a direct conversation with the masters and discover more about who they are and what they're about.
Well, that sounds wonderful. And so when you do this, can you do it even if you're just audio, or do you have to be in a video setting?
We give people options, so we can do Zoom, FaceTime, Skype, or however they want to do it.
Okay, wonderful. That's nice to know. Well, we're going to have to close out the show, Rebecca, but if you'd like to share just a few closing words for us, we'd appreciate it.
Well, I just want to really just embrace everyone and reach out and hold you so dearly, because it's such a challenging time for everybody right now. But it's also the best time for newness and new potential. So when things start breaking down, that's when we start seeing the new openings. So hang in there, everybody.
Yeah, I so agree. I think that's great. So again, let's put up your website. It's RebeccaDawson.net, N-E-T. So make sure that you go on our website, and there's a lot of information there. And then, of course, her wonderful books. We talked about them. She had a new book out, which is The Agreement. And then also she's got 3 other books. And so the one is her first book was The New Human Experience. And then she has the Elements of New Reality ebook. And then it was The Game of Purpose, right? Which I think is really great if you're looking to really find your purpose and understand the feeling of needing to have your own purpose. I think it's a really cool book. So thank you so much for that. So, but we appreciate having you on the show. And I believe you're writing another book. Did you tell me at the beginning of the show before?
Oh, I didn't tell you that actually, but you must have picked it up because I am writing another one.
Oh, you didn't? I must have picked it up. Yeah. So see, I'm finding out my purpose. So yeah. So yeah. Well, we're going to look forward to the next one, and we're going to ask you to please come on with us again and
Thank you.
would love it. And you're welcome anytime. We'd love to have
Lovely
you.
to be here. Thanks so much.
That would be great having you. Well, gosh, everyone, the time went so quickly, and I want to thank you so much for joining us here. This is the Going Solo with Cece show. I am Cece Schatz, a doyen of relationship building. You're listening to WGSN-DB Going Solo Network, and we're going to be on live here through the night. So just stick on our either Facebook or YouTube channel on WGSN-DB Going Solo Network, and we're going to have great shows. Stick around. We got the Veterans Corner coming up, and I love that show. So I hope you guys will embrace it as much as I do. So I will see you guys there because I'm going to be watching it too. So I'll see you then. Bye. I'll see you back here next week. Bye.